Good morning. This is the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission. This is a rare 8 a.m. Friday morning business agenda. We will start by recognizing our existence with a roll call.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Here.
Commissioner Cross.
Present.
Commissioner Mesner.
Here.
Commissioner Oath.
Here.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
And Commissioner Ray.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 6 commissioners present.
Great. That's quorum. Good to see everybody. We have one order of business this morning, and that is to hear an update from the Director, Julie Murphy, on the data integrity notification issues. Director Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, and thanks to folks who are tuning in bright and early this morning. My name is Julie Murphy. I'm the Director of the Energy and Carbon Management Commission. I am, of course, disappointed by the circumstances that lead to today's hearing, yet I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some more information that members of the public, that each of you, that the press, and that our local government partners have been curious about. So the purpose of the hearing is for me to provide an update about our ongoing investigation. I would remind us all, this is an active, ongoing investigation, and we are, balancing transparency and accountability and our enforcement process. In my estimation, the Commission does not need to take action today. AAG Mercer is, of course, available to you individually or through executive session to provide counsel should legal questions arise today or in the future. And just to kind of reorient us, as I described during our hearing on November 26th, there were individuals at consulting firms that submitted falsified laboratory data and reports to ECMC. These consultants were hired by oil and gas operators, and we do not have information that the operators were aware of the falsifications. For folks who are maybe just tuning into today's hearing and did not participate in the November 26th hearing, did not listen into it, a recording of that and a press release is available on our website. For context, I don't want to restate too much of that this morning. But I do want to reorient us that, you did request no fewer than quarterly public updates and updates when needed throughout the investigation. I asked for a special meeting today because we achieved kind of another step in the investigation. Today, we are sharing the locations of the impacted sites known to date to be affected and an outline of a plan of action for prioritizing addressing those sites. And so the information we will be sharing at the conclusion of this hearing includes a map of the sites in it, as well as a list of the remediation projects, some information about those projects, a little bit of context about the situation, as well as guidance about how to navigate our system. We're trying to provide that in a package that's accessible and understandable, recognizing that our system and the way we do business can sometimes feel unfamiliar for folks who don't work with us day in, day out. So before I get into a little bit of detail about that, I want to recap our timeline. First, to be clear, we are the regulatory agency in this space and will lead the investigation and oversee the cleanup of the environmental impacts affected by falsified data. Our scope is critically important, but also very, very precise in my estimation. And the impact that we're looking at will vary based on the result of each location's investigation or our investigation to each of the projects that has been impacted by falsified data. We anticipate that some sites will need no change to their remediation plan, which is great news. And there will be some sites that will require adjustments to the remediation plan or perhaps reopening of closed sites. We are still working through that level of detail, and it will be, a site-by-site analysis. And so upon the results of our investigation, of course, operators remain responsible for implementing adjustments to the remediation plans and completing remediation plans in accordance with our act and rules. And that's our role as regulator to oversee and hold accountability for that. So our awareness of this grew over time. We were notified in July and August at a very high level that there may be some instances of data falsification. In September, we started to understand and take steps internally to prevent submission of future falsified data, which was an important step. And then in October is when we really began to understand the scope affected on the scale of hundreds of sites instead of 5 or 10 sites, and then initiated our own internal investigation. And then in November, shared this information with you, the commissioners and the public. As I stated in our first hearing and continue to prioritize, our top priority here is determining the risk to public health or safety. Based on our investigation to date, we remain confident that the falsified data creates no new risks to public health. And that is based on our understanding that the scope of the data impacted is limited to site investigation and remediation work plans for sites that have already been disturbed by oil and gas development. And this is really significant. The investigation is important, and the act of submitting falsified data is abhorrent. The actual environmental impact is not an emergency in our estimation. By determining that the falsified plans pertain to site investigation and remediation work plans, I'm having trouble with that this morning, which are also known as our Form 27s for those who speak the form language that sometimes our team gets into. We determined that the data manipulation affected soil, groundwater, inorganic, organic contaminant data at sites that were already disturbed and under an active remediation plan. So this investigation is complex, given the volume of falsified data, and then the degree to which the falsified data appears right now to be erratic and somewhat patternless to us. There are a number of constituents affected, and in some ways we don't totally understand why. But what it really underscores is the importance of us going to each site individually, taking a look at it, and taking steps necessary to ensure that the data is corrected and that the site is remediated to our standards. So with all of that prefatory language, I want to switch gears just a bit, and I would ask Kristen Kemp, our very capable community or communications manager, community relations manager, to share a map of the locations that we have put together to date to help everybody kind of orient in space and time. Again, after this, more information will be available about these different pieces. And thanks, Kristen, for sharing it. I think that there is a legend on it. As you can see, there's a mix of locations, both in unincorporated Weld County and municipalities within Weld County. We have been in closer contact with local governments this past week to try to talk about what we understand is in their community to date, and more importantly, set up a cadence for communication on a go-forward basis so that we are supporting them, their constituents, and any questions they may have. I look forward to those conversations continuing. And I think that as you're looking at this map, the yellow are the incorporated areas, the gray is the unincorporated area. As we said, we understand that almost all of this is in Weld County. There are a couple of sites on the border with Larimer as well. And we've distinguished in this map between the closed locations and the closed remediation projects and the open remediation projects, because that's important to us as we're prioritizing our workflow. What I want to reiterate is that regardless of how we prioritize our work in evaluating each of these plans and projects, by the end of our investigation, we will look at every site. And so getting back to kind of our priority are the sites that are closed and also within a municipality. Those are fairly limited right now, which is great. We hope to move through those relatively quickly and then broaden out to those sites that are closed. And our goal in approaching the closed sites first is that these are the ones that may be returned to the surface owner, or we may believe that there's no further action when in fact we do need to go back in and potentially revisit the physical location and have either have other remediation work performed. So that's kind of scope and scale. We want to start with closed in municipalities, move out to closed projects, and then move to projects that are open. And the open ones are the ones where we may see the least change in plans because they are open. The work can go on once we have updated data. So again, our investigation rate, this portion of our investigation is focused on the site-specific work. I would also mention that we are concurrently investigating the broader implications and scope of the falsified data. So going back and looking more collectively through our data. In an interesting coincidence, we just created a new QA/QC or quality assurance, quality control team. That team is led by our esteemed colleague, Mike Leonard, who many of you are familiar, have worked with as our compliance manager. He's moved into a new role. And that his team will be leading an investigation into the data integrity more broadly. And so that work may result in additional sites being added. And if so, we will continue to work closely with local governments and also provide you updates quarterly or more frequently if it's appropriate. I do want to take a moment to thank the team. They have been laser focused on this and committed to getting the data reviewed, accurate, and then available as quickly as we can, recognizing the importance of this issue to many folks. And they have stepped up despite very full plates to lead this investigation. We do often find ourselves asking why do we think this happened and why a few individuals appear to have taken such action. And that is a very interesting question, but it's not the one we're tasked with answering. Our work is to ensure compliance with our rules and regulations, which in this instance requires investigating and inspecting sites, getting them clean to our standards, and getting the data corrected. Having to go through this is certainly disheartening, that said. So, as you know, I said earlier, given our concerns about the submission of falsified data, we are cooperating with law enforcement, and this matter has been referred to prosecutors for further review, assessment, and potential investigation. And with that, I am going to conclude my remarks. We will return no later than March with an update, and we'll evaluate whether it's appropriate to bring more information forward to you kind of along the way as we start getting into some of those individual projects. And I also want to thank our local government partners. Many of them spent some time with us yesterday, and I know that they are often tasked with so much, and so to make time for us was deeply appreciated, and we look forward to continuing to support them how we can through this and through other oil and gas or energy related questions that arise in their jurisdictions. So with that, Chair, I was hoping to keep this to 10 minutes. 13 is not bad, and happy to take questions and look forward to continuing this work and updating you all in the future.
Thank you very much, Director Murphy. We appreciate the report and keeping everybody up to date. Just one potential clarifying question. Talk to us a little bit about the work that you've done to ensure local governments are up to speed. Frankly, I was a little disappointed with Jason Maxey and Weld County and some of the things that were in the paper about not being told and ramifications of that. And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk with Mr. Kavanaugh, the replacement for Mr. Maxey over there, but would love to sort of clear the record on that front.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. I would acknowledge, and I've asked for some grace in terms of how we communicated initially with local governments. It was very abrupt right before the hearing. We were moving as quickly to get this information to the public, and that crunched our time to have some earlier conversations. That said, I've spoken with Weld County twice this week, if we don't count the Joint Budget Committee hearing before Senator Kirkmeyer, and had really productive conversations with Mr. Kavanaugh. And again, really look forward to the partnership, appreciate their interest and understanding of the situation in which we find ourselves, and am really looking forward to engaging and understanding how we can support both Weld County and the municipalities that are impacted to date. I would note that in culling through this data, we did identify that 2 of the impacted sites are actually just on the Larimer County side of the Weld-Larimer border. And so we also reached out and had a conversation with Larimer County earlier this week. And again, our goal in that is to say, we are sharing this information. We want to support you. What is a cadence for communication on this? What makes sense? And to be responsive and to be available and support, recognizing that they're getting probably as many phone calls as we are. And so I hope that answers your question, Chair.
Yeah, well, it sounds like that you feel comfortable in the intergovernmental relationship with the various affected local governments, and that you and your team are doing everything you can to ensure transparency and understanding and ability to react if there are issues which don't seem to be totally at play so far.
I think so, yes.
And sort of the other thing that we were reading about was, and this is a conundrum, our agency relies on accurate transmission of information from the people that are the operators that we regulate. What sorts of efforts are being explored to ensure that the information that's transmitted to us is indeed accurate, knowing that, I think I recall there was a couple hundred places and there's 6,000 that are out there. And so grand scheme of things, the percentage is small, but we want to make sure everything's accurate.
I think that's a great question. And so in September, we started adjusting how we are asking for information as it comes in on the Form 27 to a degree, right? And I don't want to belabor the kind of back end mechanics of it, but what we were asking for is a standalone PDF to be included with the Form 27 that comes in, and that allows our team to examine the metadata, which takes me back to discovery and practicing law, which is a terrible place for me to be, but examining the metadata to understand if it was manipulated, to give us a read on whether there was whether something happened to that document that we should follow up on. And we think that that's a really good start to the course correction, and really look forward to the work from Mr. Leonard's team to understand if there are other vulnerabilities that we should be addressing or thinking about. But the core piece here, right, is that our work as any other regulated entity is rooted in the basic assumption that people obey the laws. And it is disheartening at best when we uncover something like this. And I appreciate the partners who have come forward to volunteer information about it and to help work through it. But I do want to make sure Mr. Leonard's team takes a look at our system and understands if there are other things we can or should be doing differently.
No, I appreciate that. And having been with the commission now almost 6 years and having been director for a bit, can't think of a better human to help run this show than Mike Leonard, who's been with our commission in probably every capacity available, and really understands this information. And so have a tremendous amount of trust for he and his team to figure this out, get it right, and chart us a good go forward plan. Okay, really appreciate that update. Do any other commissioners have questions? All right, seeing no questions, that means you did a great job. Thanks for the update. We'll look forward to continued updates on this important topic. Again, appreciate the diligence of our ECMC team on this front. with this unexpected sort of development, and know that you're doing an amazing job working through it. Do we have other business? I don't believe so. So we will let everybody adjourn to other business this morning. And I would move to adjourn the meeting. Looking for a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much, Director Murphy, for joining us this early on a Friday the 13th. Everybody have a good weekend, and we will see you next week.